Hey guys, I am excited to have here today with me Bernie Thompson, who is not a five-figure seller, not a six-figure seller, not a seven-figure seller. Yes, there's another number there. He's an eight-figure seller on Amazon. He's been on Amazon since 2009. He actually literally is the poster child for selling internationally. In fact, if you logged into Seller Central here in the last few months, you may have seen his face of, hey, go to Europe. And it was Bernie Thompson here. So Bernie is a wealth of information. He is very sharing and forthcoming with his information. I've actually had the pleasure of meeting Bernie now twice at Seller Summit, where he's been a speaker both times. And I remember actually the first time I met Bernie, I just walked up and introduced myself to him and Ritu, who's the marketing person from his company. And I just said hello. And they actually, this was at Starbucks, and I needed to go back to my room to finish getting ready, but they said, "Hey, join us." And I was like, "Oh wow, I just met these people, and they're inviting me to breakfast." So it was like, "Wow, these are really down to earth, good people." So I've had a very favorable impression of Bernie and Ritu and his team ever since. So I'm really excited to have Bernie on to share some of what he knows about selling on the platform and how to grow and scale your business all the way up to 8 figures. So first off, Bernie, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on the show, Kevin. This is great, and I think it's the Pacific Northwest culture. We're from Seattle here, and we're easygoing. We're friendly people.
I love it. I love it. I'm in the exact opposite corner of you in South Florida, so it seems like those two cultures merge pretty well together. So
yeah, they do. I started my career working down at IBM in Boca, so I lived down there for a couple of years. I worked on OS2, the operating system down there, or at IBM down there. So yeah, I love South Florida.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's 45 minutes ish from where I'm at. So yeah, that's awesome. So first off, Bernie, do you mind just sharing for anyone who's watching or listening, who maybe is not familiar with your backstory, just a little bit about you, how you got into all this, and just kind of tell us from there.
Yeah. So I'm a geek. I'm a software guy, and I worked at a lot of big companies. I just mentioned, worked at IBM down there by you, and I worked at Microsoft in the Windows team, and so have worked for the man, for quite a few years.
Right.
But in the area that I was in, which was operating systems and devices and device drivers, there were a lot of kind of recurring problems with products. I managed the USB team, and sometimes we didn't love what some of these USB device makers would do. They weren't doing the right stuff.
Okay.
So thoughts started creeping into my head. Well, could I build a better device company? And around that time, Amazon was kind of beginning its rise to dominance and had just launched FBA. This is 2008, 2009. And so decided to make the leap and start a, fresh from the ground up electronics company, but one that bet on Amazon. So, one of the things that's slightly different about me is I didn't see the Amazon opportunity and then try to come up with something to leverage it. I'm coming from the other direction. I was trying to build an electronics company, and Amazon seemed like a great way for me to be able to just focus on products and customer support and the technology and kind of outsource all this other stuff that I was no good at, including marketing and sales and logistics and all that stuff. And I got lucky. My timing was good and it worked out well.
Awesome. Yeah. You've built quite the business, and as I understand it, you're on not just Amazon in the U.S., but you're in quite a few different platforms. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I mean, we hunt for diversification. It's hard to come by as Amazon just swallows the world's market share. But yeah, in on the Amazon platform, we try to sell as many markets as we can globally. So we're in Europe. We use Amazon's FBA export program out of the UK to target 26 countries in Europe and sell directly on the 5 main marketplaces. We're in Canada. We're in Mexico. We're in Japan. Amazon is actually buying our goods in the U.S. and direct retailing it in China. We're about to do the tax registration and get launched in Australia. So we try hard to kind of get that global diversification because we're putting a lot of energy into developing unique and really cool products. And if we're not selling somewhere, well, then that's fertile ground for some competitor to, come up with similar products and sell them there. So We want to, really, really make our stuff available everywhere. And then in the US, we try to hunt for diversification off Amazon, which is really hard to come by because Amazon is really dominant in the US. But we
Right.
sell on Walmart and eBay and Newegg. We used to sell in Jet. We distribute through the biggest distributor in the US to lots of other small places. So yeah, we're constantly thinking about, how can we expand our reach? How can we diversify? But it's been in this overall context of, Amazon taking more and more of the market from everybody.
Yeah. I mean, they've got, what is it? Something like 53% of e-commerce, at least in the US, is on Amazon, which is crazy.
It's
So,
crazy. And what's important to understand about that 53% number is in some categories, it's far higher. And,
right.
I'm in electronics, and in
Mhm.
electronics, the number is way above 53%.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, if you think about it, the nice thing about Amazon is you've got that review platform where, as sellers, we know there's issues with it, but I think for the average consumer, they want to know what other people think, even if it's not perfect. So they, go to Amazon. Like I've done that myself. I'm at Best Buy and I go to Amazon, I look up that product and I'm like, oh wait, I can get it for $30 less on Amazon. I just have to wait a day or two or whatever. And I can see like, what are people actually saying? And I tend to actually trust Amazon's review system more so than I do if I went on like bestbuy.com. Nothing against Best Buy. I just think Amazon's really done a good job with it.
Yeah, no, that's right. And so everybody in the US thinks that way. And so, yeah, we
Right.
have a really one dominant player.
Yeah. So you've clearly scaled your business to, a level that a lot of people are looking to do. Um, if you were, let's say, in the shoes of a lot of people that be watching this and maybe are just launching, or, maybe they got a 5-figure or a 6-figure business and you're looking at, okay, I want to scale off Amazon, because we all have this fear of like, okay, Amazon's going to shut off the light switch for me tomorrow or something, which I think as long as we all play white hat by the rules, we're probably okay. Something could happen. Do you have any thoughts on like, the whole kind of white hat versus black hat?
Yeah, the white hat, black hat thing is really important. What the reason why it's so important on Amazon is Amazon's and Jeff Bezos's goal, very explicitly right from the start, has been to create the most competitive marketplace in the world.
Right.
Everybody's on there. Everybody's fighting for price. And he's been successful, of course, at kind of achieving that. Now, one of the consequences of that I don't know actually that Amazon's properly thought through is it is so competitive that every little thing makes all the difference in the world.
Right.
Like, for example, our company is actually a bit of a poster child for selling globally on Amazon, selling in Europe. We
Uh-huh.
don't actually do that well in Europe. European GDP is about approximately equivalent to the US. Amazon isn't quite as dominant in Europe, but easily you should be able to get maybe, let's say, 50% of your US sales in Europe. We don't get nearly that much. Why don't we? Well, there could be a couple of reasons. We might be executing poorly, too, on top of this. But the number one reason is we comply with all the tax laws in Europe.
Mm.
So we're collecting and remitting 20% tax in the UK and similar amounts in the other countries. And a lot of our competitors on Amazon for years now have been avoiding the VAT tax system. So, and interestingly, they're not like taking it as profit for themselves. What they're doing is they're not absorbing that cost. They're not passing it on to consumers. They have lower prices on Amazon. So, they're not stealing the money. They're just
Right.
passing it on to consumers. But by doing so, 20%, holy moly, that is way beyond the winning margin, for a product on Amazon. If something is 20% cheaper than something else,
Right.
that cheaper product's going to win, every time. And so we've faced a bit of an uphill battle, trying to distinguish ourselves when we're properly complying with the tax laws. So that's kind of a very concrete example of something that just happens across the board, with even down to little things of, do I put flashy, colorful icons on my main image?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to get suspended for that. But it's technically against Amazon's guidelines. Certain things within the Amazon system will enforce you not doing that. Like if you're running certain lightning deals and stuff, they'll reject your deals if you do that. And yet, even though it's against guidelines, if you're a seller who does that, who puts a bunch of flashy, colorful icons in your listing, your conversion rate's going to be higher. People are going to be attracted to go click on your product.
Mm-hmm.
And on the, a super competitive marketplace like Amazon, that can be the winning edge. And so, from very black things to even kind of gray things, every seller on Amazon faces this difficult choice about how can I differentiate myself? How can I build market share on Amazon without doing some of these things? And so we've tried to do that. I mean, we get into some of the gray areas. Like we used to have icons on our main images years ago, but we ended up removing them as it became too much of a pain as they kept getting rejected for deals and things like that. But the thing is especially as you get into the black hat stuff, what can be, apparently maybe, you can feel like it's my only way to win on the platform when you're small and you're getting started. That will also be the thing that will keep you from building a sustainable business, because, by doing those, gray or black hat things, you're really increasing your chance of getting kicked off the Amazon platform. Amazon's a bit erratic about suspensions. Like you were kind of hinting at, sometimes even when you're the good guy, you're not sure whether you might get hit by a suspension because of how erratic Amazon can be about it. But be rest assured that if you're doing, kind of more of the black hat things, buying reviews, having friends or relatives, doing reviews for products, paying people on the side for this or that, Amazon has got a lot of resources from kind of algorithms to people that are on the hunt for that sort of behavior, and they will not hesitate for a second to kick you off the platform. So most of the people that are doing kind of the black hat stuff pretty brazenly, they will be successful for a while, but ultimately it'll catch up with them and they'll get kicked off the platform. So I don't know, it was a little bit of a long-winded answer, but I think this is a really important area for anyone who's thinking of selling on Amazon to be thoughtful about, because it is important. And there's hard choices in there, but ultimately, if you're going to build, a business that's going to be around for years, you got to play by the rules and be successful under those rules, even if sometimes that's hard.
No, that's a great point. I'm glad you said that. I've actually worked now for 2 Fortune 500 companies. And there's one thing I noticed is that, sometimes people would get away with things that they probably shouldn't have been doing. And then either one, the rules change or the enforcement arm starts coming in. All it takes is someone somewhere up the chain to say, what about XYZ? And they start looking into and they start diving deeper into reports. And now all of a sudden, people start losing their job for something that they were quote unquote getting away with, but they shouldn't have been doing. And, it's one of those things that, these things will catch up to people. And Amazon has a whole lot better data mining system than the Fortune 500 companies that I had worked with previously, especially in this day and age. Amazon, all they have to do is figure out what filters they want to look at in a report. And all of a sudden, they start seeing, wait, something about this looks black hat, and they start looking up, everything that, is going to fit that criteria. Now all of a sudden, maybe you're tainted, or people that are leaving you reviews are tainted if you're using a service that, is doing something they shouldn't be doing. There's all kinds of different ways to get on a platform. And to your point, think of it long term. The people that are doing stuff they shouldn't be doing are going to get, slapped on the wrist somehow. And sometimes it's not just a slap on the wrist, it's being gone. But in your experience, people that play by the rules, are they more likely to keep their account safe?
Yeah, it is more likely to keep the account safe. I mean, just because while you can't take the probability of a suspension event to zero,
right?
You take it down really significantly. We've been selling on the platform since 2009. We've never had or even been threatened with an account suspension. We've had lots of ASIN suspensions, which are usually for very, kind of specific reasons that we can talk about. None of them having to do really with these issues of black or white hat. They're more having to do with product quality, safety, certifications type things. I think that you absolutely can control your risk profile on Amazon by, doing the right thing.
Right. No, totally agree with that. So we'll get into the products here in a moment. But what I did want to touch on is going back a little bit to what you were saying with, selling internationally. For those who aren't familiar, in the US and Canada, we have sales tax or GST, which is added on to the price. So if, Amazon collects it on your behalf, it's, if you're selling a product for $20 and it's 6% sales tax, my quick math tells me that's $1.20 they're collecting on your behalf that you owe to whatever state government or, Canada or whatever the case is. Whereas in Europe, it's different. Everything is an inclusive price. So, if you think about like if you've ever been to the movie theater or, a stadium where, it's like $8 for a hot dog and you just give them $8 and they give you the hot dog, the tax is included in that. So traditionally in Europe, tax is included on these prices. So the selling price is essentially 1/6 of it is including value-added tax. If it's a 20% tax so you're basically paying 120% of the price if you're the consumer. So that means we have to take out 20%. So that margin, as you're talking about, is passing along. There's definitely challenges of selling internationally, but to your point, like even though like the GDP, which is the economy, is similar size in Europe as it is in the US. I still find my sales in Europe to be around 10 to 15% of the US, and it's not quite as profitable, but still it's 10, 15%. Now, you're in some other marketplaces. Can you share like, if we look at Amazon.com in the US as our baseline, how would you compare your sales in some other channels to, Amazon in Europe or Canada?
Right. Yeah. For us, our kind of big four are Japan, Canada, UK, and Germany.
Okay.
Each of those varies between maybe 5 and 10% of our US sales. They don't ever add up to 40. It usually adds up in total across all of the non-US geographies on Amazon to around 20% or so for us. I guess it might approach 25 sometimes.
Okay.
But those are the big four. France is a big jump down in size. Spain is a big jump down in size. Mexico is really hard, right? Still and not moving too much. So then, and out of that big four, the two ones that are easiest to target are Canada and the UK because you don't have language barriers.
Right.
Canada and the UK are both relatively forgiving in terms of import-export and the kind of rules around that. Germany and France and Japan are more complicated, mostly because in both Canada and the UK, you can do a few registrations yourself in terms of tax and take care of everything yourself. In Germany, France, and Japan, you need a third-party fiscal representative to kind of be between you and the government. They basically want a local entity to be kind of the butt on the line, the entity that they can go to if there's trouble in import, export, or tax. So we deal with all those geographies, but we get at least for us, we find that those four are very similarly sized. Japan is the most interesting one for us in the sense that I think a lot of people struggle in Japan. We've done pretty well there. And our trick for doing that is we hired native speakers. I've got kind of 3 people in the company who all are fluent in Japanese. And so that's probably, given what I've heard about other people's experiences, it probably has enabled that to be as big a market as Canada or the UK. If we hadn't done that, it probably wouldn't be.
Yeah, that's good to know. I'm actually getting started in Japan. I've got products that went to, I forget if it's ACP or whatever the term is for that third party that has to vouch for you, so to speak, which of course is just, you pay a fee and then they kind of vouch on your behalf to accept the goods and then they're going to prep it. And then, so hopefully here in about a week or two, I'll be up and running in Amazon in Japan.
Oh, that's exciting. Wow.
Yeah.
That's great, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm excited. Now, I don't have a Japanese speaker on staff, so I actually only went to Japan because Amazon reached out to me. and they have somebody on their team. So we'll see how good their translations are.
Yeah, and and then we were talking about tax earlier. So every country is different. So the way Japan works is you're going to be paying Japanese consumption tax, which is 8%. And when those goods, who I guess they're right now getting imported into Japan, that third party ACP, you said you're using. We're using a company called Windows, which is a little confusing, but it's another one of those third parties that actually, if you can get a hold of an Amazon account manager who's kind of walking you into Japan, they will hook you up with one of these companies. And so we have to send them basically our bill of lading and commercial invoice for the goods with retail values. That's the interesting thing about Japan, is your tax is actually paid on the final retail value of the goods. And so you'll pay that kind of upfront on import. And that third party will kind of handle that. Now, of course, for us in the Amazon world, we say, what final retail value? I'm not sure what that's going to be, because we're discounting, and if the stuff doesn't move, we're going to lower the price. Well, the Japanese tax system kind of assumes that when at the time of import that you're able to predict a stable final retail price, and if it's not, you might end up overpaying a little bit on taxes or whatever. They try not to. They're very strict about policing underpaying. Like if you try to underdeclare the value of the goods, that's obviously a great way to save a bunch of money and cheat their system. And so the Japanese are pretty good about being strict about enforcing that. Interestingly, in Europe, that's how a lot of people trick the system in Europe. They will underdeclare the value of the goods, ship them into a country that's known to be a little lax in their procedure, like the Netherlands, and then once the goods have entered the EU, then there's not as heavy tracking as the goods move around the EU. We've always imported in through the UK, which is pretty strict. When it comes to value, well, I don't know how strict they are, but we haven't played games, and so we haven't tested it, I guess is the right way to put it. But generally, the people playing games will come in through countries like the Netherlands.
I had never heard of that. And I do exactly what you do, where I send everything into the UK. I'm doing European fulfillment. I'm not doing the pan-European. But that's interesting that people are going to that extreme. But the thing of it is, people got to realize, okay, maybe you're not getting caught now, but maybe it's not even Amazon that cares. But maybe the European Union, as a governmental agency, gets a new computer program that's like, wait, something's wrong here. And all of a sudden you get a bill.
Yeah, no, and it happens all the time. I mean, one of our our two big competitors for our products are Amazon themselves with Amazon Basics, and then we end up competing head to head with a really kind of strong, brilliant company called Anchor, a very well-known brand that built themselves on Amazon.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, Anchor. So great company, well run, very an honest company, but for years they were also kind of avoiding the VAT system in Europe.
Oh.
And so they got slapped 2 years ago with a £1 million British pound tax bill. It made the papers over there in the UK.
Wow.
So yeah, so there's absolutely Amazon sellers who are, and in fact, there's a lot right now with VAT. There's a lot of Amazon sellers who are getting hit by that stuff. Ed Rosenberg, who runs a seller, basically a seller community in the New York City area. Great guy, does a lot of great stuff for sellers. Really has gotten, got in a bind with this stuff where, he maybe hadn't been doing it the right way for a few years, and now, they're kind of coming after him for back years, and then, and there's a lot of other sellers in his community in the with the same issue. It's if you're serious about your business, if you're trying to build a brand, if you're trying to build a company, you got to evaluate these tax things and don't play games. Either just don't do it at all, or in terms of getting into a geography, or kind of get in and do it the right way. And that's why we haven't sold directly in China. We haven't sold directly in India. Part of the reason why we haven't done that is because of the very complex tax and corporate and regulatory rules there. To do it right is really hard. And so we're just going to avoid that for the time being.
So to your point, I mean, there are challenges selling internationally. You got to learn to play by the rules. Now, the nice thing is Amazon has a lot of great resources, I think, to help you. If you just read the articles and, they've got, relatively um, inexpensive, services that you can use to help you with these things. Now, is it worth selling it internationally versus going to, like, let's say another marketplace like, Walmart or eBay or something like that and try to put more focus on that?
Yeah, I think it depends on a few factors. Yeah, Amazon's gotten a lot better about providing good information, good resources, but they still are hitting their hiccups. Like, for example, Amazon's been through a progression of different strategies to try to help sellers deal with VAT in Europe, and every one of them has kind of failed so far. The most recent one is it was really an Amazon-provided service that was back-ended by a U.S. company called Avalara, and I
Uh-huh.
think they're ultimately going to make it work, but they launched it, they got a certain number of sellers into it, and that program's currently on pause because they were just having, even though they've got like kind of, they're a massive company and Avalara is a massive kind of like public US company.
Right.
VAT was so complicated that when you were trying to do it for hundreds or thousands of marketplace sellers, they couldn't make it work well enough. So they've taken a kind of a pause on it, but I assume they're going to, kind of work those issues out and start that again. But for me, when people ask me that, I usually say if you're up into a few million in revenue in the U.S., you really should start thinking about maybe your first geographies outside the U.S. If you're sitting at low hundreds of thousands, I think it may be too early yet because you're probably kind of like your and my numbers, Kevin, are very similar in terms of think about a 15, 20, 30% diversification. So if you're sitting at 200,000 in revenue, to be able to get an extra 20,000 or 40,000 in revenue, it's nice, but that's only at the kind of margins that you get on the Amazon platform. That's only a few thousand in extra profit. It's certainly going to cost you a few $1,000s either directly in your time or hiring service providers, accountants, and tax and attorneys and stuff to do it. So you probably too early if you're in the low six digits, but if you get into the low seven digits, I would basically embark on a strategy of diversifying internationally, country by country, opportunity by opportunity. And it's really smart. The other thing that might affect it is how unique your products are. If your products are pretty unique and it's selection that's just simply not present on those other marketplaces, that might be a special opportunity where you might want to do it earlier than if it's a kind of a commodity product.
Yeah, I've actually had a different take on it. So I'm probably in the neighborhood of coming up on about $300,000 in previous 12 months revenue. And I've heard a lot of people say that too. And for me, I've found, trying to go into like other marketplaces, and I say other marketplaces, I mean like eBay or my jet.com foray, which ended up being like $600.
Right. Same experience I had with Jet. Yeah. We tried it, dumped it.
Yeah. It was like nothing. And, I found like the mistake I made was like in Europe, I should have just stuck with just the UK, like going into like France and Spain and all that. But like, it's kind of just copy and paste. I found to, take my English listings, put them up in, Canada, figure out what the conversion is, and then add a little bit because people are willing to pay more in Canada to keep at least relatively similar profit margins. To your point, the margins aren't as good in the UK, but I mean, the way I look at it is for just telling my supplier, okay, if I'm ordering X number of units, take Y number of those units and send them to UK. And I have a company that does the prep work for me. And other than, filing a form 4 times a year, I haven't had too much of an issue. But like one thing I did want to touch on is in your talk at Seller Summit this past year, you talked about Walmart. So right. Tell me a little bit about your experience on Walmart and how selling in Walmart has gone for you.
Right. Yeah. Walmart, I mean, we talked about how dominant Amazon is, and gosh, one of the troubles with dominant companies is that it can get bad for everybody, because the dominant company gets a little arrogant, they don't do such a good job. So it's important that even the best companies in the world have some healthy competition to kind of keep them honest.
Sure.
And so we're kind of at this interesting point in the U.S. where Amazon has become so dominant. The question is, who's going to step up and keep Amazon honest and provide a kind of a second solid marketplace where people can move some units and have have ability to reach consumers. So Amazon in physical retail is that's what it's dominant in. I mean, it was the Amazon of the 80s and 90s in terms of dominating physical retail. But unfortunately, they've really just struggled with e-commerce, and you can identify potentially a bunch of reasons why. But and like everything, the actual numbers vary by category of product. There are some categories of product where Amazon or Walmart or even Jet actually do well.
Uh-huh.
But in my world on Walmart, the results are pretty dismal. Basically, we've kind of launched full bore on Walmart. Not quite all of our SKUs, but most of them up on the Walmart platform, and it's basically 0.3% of our Amazon sales right now.
Wow.
I think we can do better.
So 3 out of 1,000.
Yeah. Oh, 3 out of 1,000. That's right. Yeah.
Wow. So for every $1,000 on Amazon.com or Amazon globally?
Amazon globally, but still.
Yeah. So for every $1,000 in sales you're getting on Amazon.com, you're getting $3 on Walmart.
Yeah. And the number one thing I'd point at, that's certainly not, just a problem of our execution or something, if I'm going to blame myself for those terrible results. I'll know that Walmart is serious when they launch an FBA competitor, because the way a Walmart sale works today is, we're having to check the Walmart site and see that there's orders, and then we ship them out of our warehouse here in near Seattle, Washington, to wherever the order is in the U.S. Walmart provides no kind of FBA equivalent, and so that also, not only is that me having to kind of bolt something onto my business I actually kind of built this business betting on having a fulfillment service, to use, because I built it originally on Amazon.
Right.
So now I've got people who are kind of overpaid for this, shipping out individual Walmart orders, but
right.
We want Walmart to grow, so we're willing to do it for a time.
Sure.
But ultimately the Walmart consumer, they're not getting the great shipping and great kind of delivery service that they get with Amazon, where they can order and potentially receive it the same day, certainly 2 days from them. It's nothing like that when you order off Walmart.com. So I hope Walmart solves this. I hope Walmart comes up with an FBA competitor. But I think until they do, we know that they're not really in the game yet, and they're not really serious.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, because I can't really think of anybody that's a really competitor for the FBA program, where they'll do basically, here's my stuff, ship it out to the customer for me, type of model. Didn't Sears try that a few years ago?
I don't know. I didn't notice that. Amazon has years and billions of dollars of lead. I mean, the cost of Amazon's warehouse infrastructure is so stunning. I mean, I think it's in the double digits in terms of billions of dollars,
wow.
Tens of billions of dollars at this point. And so, only I don't know who is going to kind of step up and compete with Amazon, but they certainly need access to a ton of resources to do it.
Yeah. And so to your point, I mean, from the customer perspective, it just makes more sense to go, buy stuff on Amazon, because you got more options, the logistics of, they get it to you faster. I mean, I live somewhat in the boonies, north of West Palm Beach, and, it takes me 2 days to get my stuff with Prime. I have a friend of mine who lives in Orlando, and he was talking about, sometimes there's hour-long delivery times. That doesn't even make sense. You order something, it's almost like a pizza, and it just comes to you an hour later. And it's not on flying drones. Like somebody in a car shows up to your doorstep and is like, here you go, here's your package.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that's crazy. So, I could see how, there's so much, focus on it. So as long as we keep that, keep the white hat tactics, do the right thing. If people are doing things that are wrong, it's all going to come back, and work out. Now, have you found any other pitfalls on Amazon? Like, do they start competing with you somewhat?
Yeah, I mean, Amazon is a great company. I mean, so let me say a few positive things because I'm going to say something like negative. So we'll sweeten the deal before we come down with the sour. But what we're doing, you and I, Kevin, in terms of being relatively small, often starting as an individual, being able to build a company, build a brand that's able to sell and reach consumers globally. And that was never possible before. Amazon's doing so many great things, for small business and for consumers. So many great things, especially for consumers, that it's hard to imagine how a company like Walmart that, would ever catch up. Okay, that said, there are some downsides to Amazon's kind of obsession with competition, with competing for the customer. And one of the characteristics of Amazon is they really want to compete at every level. I mean, at any level of what they do, they, from ordering the product to shipping the item to the customer, they'll kind of break those down into services and kind of compete on each of those services individually. And also at the brand level, around the time I started, my company, Amazon started their own private label company called Amazon Basics. That actually started in the fall of 2009, the same time.
Oh, yes. I'm sure everyone's seen Amazon Basics, batteries and stuff like that.
Yeah, and Amazon Basics now, like private label, a lot of places like Kirkland Signature at Costco, or whatever. I mean, this isn't a unique thing. Every supermarket chain has their private labels. Well, sure. Amazon has their private labels too. Yeah, the thing about Amazon that's different is their aggressiveness in competing. Amazon has access to just this stunning amount of data that nobody else has access to, including none of those other retailers. And Amazon's always looking at categories that are getting big and what products are winning those categories. And they're going to, get into those with their private label brands. So we've had this happen now more than once over the course of our company's lifetime, where we've been extremely successful, had the top seller in a category that was a pretty big category. And then Amazon clearly had kind of gone in and done the analysis of that category, seen what was selling. And in two of the cases, they actually went and sourced the exact same product from the exact same supplier.
How would they even know who the supplier is?
In electronics, there are a lot of suppliers in the industry. There's often dozens or hundreds. But in terms of top tier suppliers, often there's only a handful. And so they're going to the bigger suppliers, which, we may be using some of the bigger suppliers, and they're sourcing from them. Or, I mean, the other thing, and I don't know whether this is the case or not, our suppliers become familiar. They know we're an Amazon specialist. They become familiar with how many units we're moving through Amazon. And then they go pitch Amazon and say, hey, Amazon Basics, we'd love to have you as a customer, and we know we're able to move, a lot of units on your platform. So it could be kind of either direction, Amazon initiating or the supplier initiating. But Amazon has this interest in expanding the Amazon Basics brand, and Amazon now has thousands of ASINs under the Amazon Basics brand. Many of them are leaders in their categories, from cables to batteries to adapters of all kinds of sorts. And then the interesting thing, and not everybody knows this, is Amazon Basics isn't where it ends. I mean, Amazon actually has dozens of private label brands, many of which you might not even, kind of know about.
So they're not all called Amazon Basics?
They're not all called Amazon Basics. There's an Amazon Essentials. Well, there we've got the Amazon word in it. But did you know that button down, if you see a button down shirt on Amazon, that's actually Amazon's own brand.
So the brand is called Button Down.
The brand is called Button Down.
You would think that's just a private label seller or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Or Lark and Row. That's actually women's wear.
Oh, wow.
It's an Amazon brand.
That's crazy.
Or I was actually surprised they got into this category, but they actually have an intimate apparel brand just called May, M-A-E. and
Oh,
that's an
wow.
Amazon brand.
Wow. That's interesting. So Amazon, you know, there's, beauty in it, but, there's also the craziness of, they could start, competing with you. So it's one of those things I'm starting to learn more and more. Part of the game is just launch new products, launch new products, launch
Yep,
new
yep.
products. I've found that, when you get to a point like a product is like a year and a half old, you can only optimize so much because other people are starting to compete with you. So just start finding new products. And, I'm finding, don't go after necessarily the home run product. For me, what works is to find something that could be multiple base hits, so to speak. And, if you have a portfolio of them, it ends up being pretty good. So,
Yep.
back to your point of what you said earlier of, it's, people that are, relatively smaller. I mean, you're much bigger than me, but, in the grand scheme of things compared to like, Walmart or Amazon themselves, Amazon's given us this great platform where, I have a full-time job and, I've created this business that sure as heck beats the stock market in any good year,
Yep.
by far, I'm much better returns. And, get to, I'm starting to take a salary too and still getting all these, great returns. So, it's all about, staying ahead and, not resting on your laurels. And,
Yep.
I didn't even realize some of those brands until we were talking about it, were Amazon brands. So, just know that Amazon could be competing with you and you think it's a private label seller. So
Right.
that's interesting. Now, one of the best ways to stay ahead of the game and, really kind of control your destiny is not just throw up a listing or, do a couple giveaways, that you really have to push traffic to it. And one of the best
Yep.
ways to do it, I found, is through PPC. So have you had pretty good success on PPC? And if so, do you have any hints and strategies on how to do that?
Yeah, I mean, we've actually been really PPC focused for the last few years. We in the early days spent a lot of money on Google AdWords, and then around when Amazon launched sponsored products, maybe about a year after they launched it, we did a big kind of A/B test to see what was more effective. And we realized, holy moly, sponsored products on Amazon is a lot more effective per ad dollar, and we flopped our whole budget over to sponsored
Oh, I
products.
bet.
I forget what year, like 2014 or 2015 or something. And so, yeah, I mean, it's actually because of all the, if you are, being, kind of purely white hat as we tend to be, you don't have a lot of options for solving what's called the cold start problem. How do you get that initial traffic to the product so that you can get those initial reviews and get that the flywheel on that ASIN spun up? The Amazon flywheel, the heart of it is Amazon rewards sales with sales.
Right.
When you do a search on Amazon for some word like white shirt, the top results for that keyword like white shirt are going to be the top selling white shirts of the recent past. And Amazon uses a little bit of a kind of combination of metrics to get at that, but pretty much sales velocity determines search position, and search position determines sales velocity. So your whole goal when you're launching a product is to get your sales velocity up. And in order to get your sales velocity up and keep it up, you also need high conversion rate. Well, ads are your one kind of purely kind of Amazon endorsed and very
Right.
effective method to make that happen. So you are going to spend more on ads initially with a newly launched product if it doesn't have reviews, for example, because you're going to be fighting the fact that a certain percent of the customers that you send to that product with an ad are going to be nervous about buying that product if there's no social proof, no reviews on that product. But that's generally what we do. We take a kind of a patient approach and just do everything we can to get attention for that product. Amazon sponsored products ads, also a lot of traditional kind of marketing and PR, and then hope that out of all of that kind of big set of people we're sending to the product, we get a few hundred buyers, and out of a few hundred buyers, we get a handful of reviews. We start building that social proof. And the trouble with sponsored product ads is they're a lot of work to maintain because you're operating at the keyword level. You're basically saying in a sense breaking down all the reasons why somebody or all the things people might be searching for where your product is the answer for those things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in your interest to get as kind of a long tail about that as possible. Like if I am selling a white shirt, I don't want to just try to win the keyword white shirt. There's tens of thousands of companies trying to win the
Right.
keyword white shirt. There better be something else, some other characteristics of my product that are interesting, that are differentiated from the competition. And very often I'm wanting to focus more actually on those things, and make sure that I'm bidding on those keywords, and when I'm bidding on those keywords and getting sales, is that profitable or not? Very often when you launch a product, it's not going to be profitable. You actually need to kind of have a business plan of saying, well, I'm going to, if my profit margin on this product's 20%, I'm not just going to spend 20% in terms of advertising cost of sales in this product. I'll take a loss on these initial sales and do a 40% average cost of sale or advertising cost of sale, and kind of invest in getting this product spun up in terms of its flywheel and the traffic to the product. And that's what we do. I mean, we basically will spend with ads, knowing that we're investing, that we're losing money at first, and then hope to get that product moved up in search results to eventually, it's what we would call a mature product, where now we're trying to, even have our ads themselves be profitable for that product.
Yeah, I mean, because at the beginning, it's that flywheel effect that I've heard you talk about several times. That it's like, if you're starting a car, you have to have the car the least gas efficient way to move a car is when it first starts. So getting it from the red light to when you get a green light and you start going, that's where so much energy goes into the car. So it's kind of the same thing in a way with the algorithm, as it kind of operates in that you got to, push hard, but then once the gears start turning, then you're going. So, for someone that's, maybe just starting out with PPC, or maybe they've been doing PPC for a while and they're just looking for tips to optimize, how do you structure those campaigns once you've launched the product and then you want to get better?
Yeah. I mean, it's just constant refinement. I mean, for us at our scale, we actually had a full-time person who was spending almost their whole week, 3 to 4 days, doing basically the set of operations around when we launch a new product, kind of determining a few dozen kind of core keywords. And then Amazon provides great data back from these ads. So out of that data includes kind of, if I did a ad on white shirt, and somebody was searching for white shirt V-collar, Amazon will actually return that back in the ad data, that the specific search somebody was doing was for a V-collar white shirt, and they bought your product, this many times. And so it's keyword refinement. It's taking some of those more specific keywords, adding them into your ad programs, your more effective keywords, bidding them up, your less effective keywords, bidding them down. Through that refinement, getting more and more precise about exactly what are the things that people are searching for, that then they choose to buy your product. Because in the end, what Amazon wants, which is similar to what Google wants with AdWords, is they want ads to be relevant. So what they really want is that when somebody searches for something, the perfect product pops up in the ads, and so they're looking at conversion rate and things like that. And your knowledge of kind of what the customer is looking for and your competitive space, what's really going to cause people to search your product or choose your product, is imperfect at first. And in a sense, through kind of everyday refinement or every week refinement of all of your bids, all your keywords, adding keywords. Amazon has a couple different what are called match types. They have broad, phrase, and exact on match types. You want to kind of promote your more effective keywords up that chain of broad, phrase, and exact. But it all takes a lot of work. So what we ended up having to do, even at our scale, was we wanted to automate it. And so we have this whole larger tool set, which I know you know about, Kevin, called Efficientera, which is this whole big set of tools that we originally created for ourselves, and now we have offered them to other sellers, and it's in the Marketplace App Store in the US, and we have hundreds of companies using our tools. The ad tool is probably one of the most valuable parts of that because, like in our case, we took this job of all of this keyword and bid refinement that was taking a person 3 or 4 days a week, and now it takes them a single day a week, only half the day, about 3 or 4 hours a day
Oh,
in
wow.
one day a week. Yeah, so dramatic reduction in the amount of time, and so and what we pay if we don't. We actually do bill ourselves for our tool. So we do actually really pay for the tool. But what we pay
Right.
for the tool is far less than what we save in labor. And we're actually getting better keyword refinement because we also, even in that 3 or 4 days, we stop short a lot of times. And here we've got algorithms, doing all these recommendations. And so we're just more on the ball, and it's allowing us to kind of evolve our ads towards this kind of perfect ad that's perfectly targeting the customer at the perfect
Sure.
kind of cost. We progress along that path a lot more quickly now.
That's awesome. So if I'm using Efficient Era, which I am a user of Efficient Era, if I have Efficient Era and I need to structure my campaigns in a way that would work for the tool, and
Yep.
would I have like a Efficient Era do, what's the word I'm looking for? The manual campaign, would I put just one SKU in a campaign, or would I put multiple SKUs in a campaign? And then for ad sets, how would I structure the ad sets?
Yeah, so the best structure for pretty much every tool is a single product per campaign,
Uh-huh.
and then only one ad group per campaign. And generally, actually, not only are you going to say just a single product in each campaign, but then even when you want to do auto and manual, and we do actually recommend that you do both auto and manual, and I can explain why. There's some specific reasons.
Sure.
So basically, for every product, you're going to have 2 campaigns, one auto, one manual campaign for
Okay.
every product. And then within those, it'll just be a single ad group. And the reason why you do it with that structure is because every product has things that are unique to it, that differentiate it, or they should. Even if you're selling shirts and you've got just colors, white shirt, black shirt, still there are things that people are searching for where a black shirt is the right answer for that search,
Mm-hmm.
that are inappropriate for the white shirt. Easy to clean, stain resistant shirt. Well, somebody's not likely to be happy choosing the white shirt if they are starting out with a search query of stain resistance. Maybe, I don't know, but
Right. I get the direction you're going.
yeah, and so it's almost always in your interest, to even in the case of very close variation relationships,
Uh-huh.
but certainly in the other cases where you got very, very different products, to know that your goal is for your ads, your keywords, your bids to really evolve into kind of a very precise map of what people are searching for when they choose that product in particular, not a set of products. It'll be less effective and less precise if you're, sending people to a set of products.
Okay, so basically we've got an auto campaign and then a manual campaign. So if I'm promoting keywords up the rank, so to speak, from broad match to phrase match to exact match, are you saying I would do a different campaign for each of those, or do in the same ad set?
Yeah, you can do it in the same ad set, and some of the tools have you break the broad and phrase and exact up into separate ad groups within the one campaign.
Okay.
We don't think that's very beneficial or necessary, because ultimately you always want every keyword to be there in the broad match, and so then the ones that are more effective and more precise, you promote them to phrase, but they're still going to stay in broad.
Okay.
And then the ones that are phrase that are even more effective, you're going to promote to exact, but they're still going to stay in broad and phrase. So there's no reason to kind of break them up, either in terms of some people point to an 1,000 keyword limit in an ad group as a reason. Well, because you're always going to have all of them in the broad, or almost all of them. There is some
right.
you're not going to really gain anything that way. So anyways, yeah, so it's really simple. It's just all your broad, phrase, and exact together, in that one ad campaign for that one product.
Gotcha. So then if somebody did use a tool like Efficient Era or one of the other tools, but I'm sure you can speak to Efficient Era, does it automatically promote them, or does it make a suggestion and you just click a button basically to prove it, just to give it a double check?
Yeah. So different tools use different philosophies. For us, we want to save time, but we also want to leave room for human judgment, because there's always kind of special cases that come up. So the way our tool works is we present recommendations. So if if you're managing a few dozen ASINs, you're going to receive potentially a few hundred recommendations any given week that are basically bid up, bid down, add this keyword, promote this keyword. And in our UI, it's very easy to accept or reject those individually, or you can just kind of accept all or reject all of them. The way I do it is I look through the list, and I'm in electronics. So one of the interesting false positives we sometimes get is we'll have people searching for a certain technology, those confusing graphics connectors in the back of your PC. You got VGA, DVI, HDMI, DisplayPort.
Right.
You know the difference, Kevin?
Yes, sort of. VGA kind of.
You're better than 90% of consumers then, because
I've messed it up a few times. Let's just say that.
We'll see consumers search for VGA and then buy HDMI cables. Well, then an algorithm will say, oh, when people are searching for VGA, we want to point them to our HDMI product, but in fact, it's an incompatible product. Mm-hmm. So I'll scan through my own, our own tool's recommendations, and uncheck a few things, say, nah, that's not right. Nope, that's not a valid keyword. And then I'll just accept everything else. Boom. Just, take 100 recommendations all at once after I've screened out a few that I've kind of manually I know things that the algorithm can't know. And it's really fast, and it saves a huge amount of time versus, not only is the UI nice and fast, which the Seller-Centric UI is not. The Seller-Centric UI is horrible, like clicking in a box, waiting for it to come up, and adjusting bids is a total pain. But also the recommendations are very smart. One of the reasons why I'm able to kind of make these choices real quick is our tool says exactly why it's making the recommendation. So it'll say, I'm recommending you bid up, but the most important thing is it says why. Oh, okay, well, this has a very higher than average conversion rate at X%, and that's why we're making this recommendation that you bid up 20 cents on the bid for this keyword. And so, you're getting kind of there's a clear intelligence there and a clear transparency about why the recommendations are being made.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I haven't turned on that feature on Efficient Era just yet.
Turn that on.
I know I need to. Yeah, because the problem is PPC for me is one of those things I just keep pushing off. But then I start realizing wait, I'm wasting a lot of money. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. It's available in not just the US, right?
Correct. Yeah. In fact, one of the tests I'm doing for mine is it's hard to do ads in a language you don't know.
Yes,
because you don't know. I don't know what people are searching for in Germany when they're searching for a VGA cable. How do you spell cable in German?
Right.
And so this is where actually I'm using our own ad tool to manage personally our Germany and France campaigns, because I can just take a few root keywords right from our translated listing, put that in as in initial campaign creation. And then now the tool will auto-discover, kind of all the real searches that people do that are derivatives of those keywords. And so, I can get this refined sense of what people are searching for in a language that I really don't, know or understand. And, that's hard to do any other way. And so tools, that's one of the big advantages of tools, is you can actually run ad campaigns in languages that you may not actually know.
One of the things I like about your tool is that you can use it in all the marketplaces, because there's not a lot of tools that have as many, call it almost like a Swiss Army knife, things. I guess the tool has so many capabilities. The tool has so many tools. I was about to say, but that's too much use of the word tool. But it has so many capabilities. I like, the the emails that it sends out. I like that it tells me every time I get a review, because I used to go to the Amazon app, and then I would look in Amazon.us for my products, and then I would go to Canada to look for my products, and then when I was going to the UK, I was looking for my products. Then all of a sudden I got more SKUs, and just trying to like keep track of that was like crazy. And now I just get an email where I'm like, ooh, I get a new review. Ooh, I got a new review. Oh, I got a new review. But at least I know, what it says. So that's one of the nice things. If I was to create a wish list for Efficient Era, I would love it if there was more currency stuff, because that's I'd say the one downfall is, if I could have currency to compare, and there's no tool that I'm aware of that has a dashboard of all your sales and all the marketplaces and compares the currency, other than you get a little bit when you log into Seller Central.
Yeah, Amazon's taking a shot at it. Yeah. And we're going to get better in that area. We actually have put a lot of effort into currency conversion, but as you say, we're not really doing it well yet. One of the things Efficient Era has is a profit dashboard, and it's actually kind of the lead thing that you see when you log in. So when you, we're not doing currency conversion there, but what we are doing is you can set a default marketplace, either UK or US. And then the profit dashboard, is going to kind of show for that area, for that geography and in that currency. But yeah, you're right. It's that's what we're headed for, and hopefully we'll get to is being able to take all the transactions globally, currency convert them, and show them in the currency that you'd like dollars, and have kind of a complete profit dashboard or anything like that, which is showing your full global revenue in a single currency. We've actually thought a lot about how to do that, and we still got some work left to do to get there, but hopefully we will soon.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like one of those things, like it's not the end of the world. It would just help with, landed costs and stuff like that, which I'm using a spreadsheet. One of the things is I just hired a virtual assistant almost 2 months ago, and she and I have started diving in a little bit more into some of the other reports into Efficient Era, just because having a full-time job and doing this and, selling in all these different countries, I'm like, I got a lot of balls in the air. But one of my takeaways from Seller Summit was to have a better handle on my numbers, really understanding, not just like I feel like it's more profitable in the US than the UK, but being able to actually say what that is. So if I need to start raising prices or whatever the case is, that I could actually, come more from like, not just scribbling on paper real quick, kind of what my unit costs are and kind of figuring out, but like having actual like data that's historical, that can give me a better picture. And that's one of the nice things I think about your tools, and it's getting better. Like one of the things I really hand to you guys is that you take that feedback, and that's one thing I've heard other sellers say, is that you guys take the feedback and, continue to refine it and make it a better and better tool. So
yeah, we got a great team on it, and and so we're constantly working on those improvements, and we have to. I mean, one of the good things for sellers is there's actually quite a lot of tools out there, and so there's a lot of kind of good competition. And then interestingly, almost like it is for our actual private label business, Amazon's a good competitor there. For a couple of years, they kind of took a break on Seller Central and didn't do much there. But in the last year or two, there's really been a lot of work Amazon's been putting in and improving the tools, that we all have directly within Seller Central. So our job with Efficient Era is to stay ahead of that, so that we can provide the sellers who are paying for our platform, business advantages that are worth the money, that are helping them succeed, versus the sellers who only, are using the tools on Seller Central. So that's our mission.
Yeah, and one of the things I still don't understand, how you keep the price as low as you do for, especially for some, because you base it based on number of SKUs and number of transactions, and for, even a mid-sized seller like myself, I mean, I'm paying like sometimes like $13, $15 a month. I think at holidays it was like $50 was the most I ever paid. And some tools are like $50 and it does like, one thing.
That's part of our goal, is to be kind of friendly to smaller sellers and people who are starting out, in the hopes that we're aligned with them, that if we can help make them successful, their order volume will grow and we'll make more money. We actually dropped the per ASIN charge too, so we're just down to 2 cents an order.
Really?
you're probably grandfathered in because you've been using the tool for a while. We grandfather people into old pricing and don't move them automatically to new pricing. But yeah, we're just 2 cents an order now. And yeah, we're on the Amazon Marketplace App Store, which I don't know if you know about that, but for all the root accounts in the US, if you go look up the menu in Seller Central, you'll see an App Store link. And Efficient is one of the tools that has been through a kind of an Amazon process to make sure that they are, compliant with Amazon's policies. Then they kind of categorize the tools by a couple different categories like advertising and listing and orders and analysis. And our tool, Efficient is one of those tools up there.
Cool. Yeah, I would definitely recommend someone check it out. And, I think you guys offer a trial as well.
Yeah, 30 days.
Awesome. So we're coming up on here, I think we've probably gone over an hour. It's really a good conversation here. But do you mind if I just ask you one more question here?
Oh, man. Sure, Kevin.
So if you were starting back out from scratch, or if you had a time machine and you went back and talked to Bernie when you were first starting out, what advice would you give to yourself if you were going to start all over again?
Yeah, I think the advice I'd give to myself is just, when something is working, we often talk about trying things, and be unafraid to try new things, and just drop the things that don't work and double down on the things that do. And sometimes, funny enough, I think that phraseology and that way of thinking of saying double down on something isn't sufficient. Sometimes you try some things and something really, really works, and you shouldn't just double down. You should go all in. And I think there's been a couple points over these last years since 2009 where if I had kind of gone all in on a clear win, we could have a lot more success than we have today. I mean, we're a very successful company. We've grown every year. I'm very happy. I'm not in this for the money. I'm in this to have a great company that has longevity, that has great products, and has happy customers. But still, if we had kind of gone all in at a few of our opportunities, we could be an even bigger company. And so I think that's actually one of the great things about being in our space is we get to watch some amazing companies do what they do. Some of them are our competitors, and one of them is Amazon. I think one of the things that Jeff Bezos always does is he always thinks big, and is willing to go all in on things. And as he says, he's willing to be wrong for long periods of time, when he's kind of got a clear vision and a kind of a clear strategy that he thinks will win in the end. And some of that boldness is something that I think is good to remind ourselves about every day.
That is excellent advice. That's excellent advice. And that's something I got to remind myself too, is to, make bolder moves. So I'm really glad you said that. So more than anything, Bernie, thank you so much for being here. You were very forthcoming with not just the good, making a sales pitch for selling on Amazon, but you shared some things that aren't so good. But, it's like you're showing people how to work through it, how to grow to those levels, creating tools to help other people. You also got the book Flywheels and Feedback Loops.
Right. Yeah. Just search on Amazon, of course.
Right. On Amazon. Yes.
Yeah. Flywheels and Feedback Loops. If you want to know how we how we sell. The book was written about 1.5 years ago, but it pretty much spills the beans on how we became successful on Amazon.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bernie. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Kevin.
Take care.